You read the title or saw the thumbnail. This is why 13th from Tanjiro vs Gyomei still isn't close. Even in 2025, people still use the same dumb scaling to scale 13th from Tanjiro and underestimate Gyomei. This video is going to be split into 6 sections, debunking 13th from Tanjiro, actually scaling him, how strong a hypothetical healthy one would be, then scaling Gyomei, and how the fight would go. To make things clear, when I say 13th from Tanjiro, I'm talking about the unhealthy one we see in the Muzan fight. To start, I'm gonna debunk some 13th from Tanjiro feats and his scaling. First, a see-through Tanjiro doesn't blitz Akaza, or no different. The reason I mention this is because people say 13th from Tanjiro is above see-through Tanjiro, so it's feats apply to 13th from Tanjiro, which in and of itself is debatable. See-through Tanjiro didn't blitz Akaza, or isn't drastically above it, because 1, C-through one is only a reaction time amp, so there's no reason to give him something like a blitz time level amp. 2. See-through Tanjiro almost dies to Akaza's final form, even with the fact that Tanjiro also had selfless state. So this is a base Akaza using final form, who's also hitting Giyu. See-through Tanjiro cutting Akaza's head also isn't a blitz. Already shown in a fight that Tanjiro is above base Akaza. So that same Tanjiro, with a much faster reaction time, is cutting Akaza's head. Akaza also almost hits Tanjiro, and they react and attack at similar times. Akaza saying Tanjiro is faster is also explaining the fact that Mark Tanjiro was faster than base Akaza. A clipless isn't a speed amp, so this still is true. For the second debunk, 13th from isn't this massive amp. What he's actually doing is going from using human Kage Kagura to real sun breathing. So this will make him faster and stronger, not to a massive amount. And using the see-through isn't an amp, as ICA Tanjiro, Infinity or Castle Tanjiro could have just done the same thing. Muzan didn't blitz any of the Hashira. I pretty much mentioned this in every Demon Slayer video, so I'll just mention it here again for like the 5th time. It's heavily implied he uses a technique, and this is heavily implied with the loud noise, ground shaking, and the Hashira getting blasted away. We literally don't know what happens, we just don't see it. So for all we know,
hey, it's me,
Goku could have came in and blasted the Hashira away. This is supported by the fact that Muzan was running March Giyu, base Obernai, and Mitsuri. Muzan has no reason to hold back, and yet random demon slayers can interrupt his attacks. Now that we're done with the debunks, I'll actually scale 13th from Tanjiro. As much as this dunked on Muzan and have a whole video dunking on him, he's still stronger than Akaza. This is because Giyu pretty much states this, and then his feats of fighting March Giyu, Tanjiro, base Obernai, and Muichiro all at once, and tagging Tanjiro when he closes in is a good feat, especially since you already established that Tanjiro is faster than Akaza. So 13th from Tanjiro should scale to this Muzan as he can fight him in his second drug. Yes, second drug is weaker, but not to a massive extent, and he still fights him in his first form. It's quite unclear whether or not 13th from Tanjiro has see-through world. The reason I say this is because even though Tanjiro technically doesn't have it, later on, in the beginning of the fight, we clearly see a panel of Tanjiro seeing through Muzan's body using see-through world. So in my opinion, Tanjiro had it at the start, lost it, tried to get it back, and went unconscious as we saw in the fight. 13th from Tanjiro is still relative to Akaza though, as we see base blind Obernai fighting with him at the start of the Muzan fight. So this supports 13th from Tanjiro not being that much of an amp. One of Tanjiro's many hacks though is that he pretty much has a homemade compass needle. The reason I say this is because he's now aiming for the heart and the head, and he's now much more precise. For a hypothetical healthy 13th from Tanjiro, he'd obviously be stronger than Injo when we see the Akaza fight. It wouldn't be to a massive extent, but if this Tanjiro had see-through world, it'd be similar to see-through Tanjiro, but slightly faster and stronger. So he's faster than Akaza by a pretty large extent, since Infinity Castle Rogue Tanjiro is faster, then add a huge reaction speed boost, and add another up in actual speed, and a plus added precision aiming, and the constant pressure of looping all the sun breathing forms, without him losing that much stamina or precision like he did in the fight. The 13th from Tanjiro we see was gradually getting weaker because he was losing stamina. Obviously, this Tanjiro won't have that problem because they have full stamina with constant pressure, while being faster than Akaza. To summarize, a healthy 13th from Tanjiro is faster than Akaza by a pretty big margin, great reaction times with see-through world, constant pressure with 13th form, and excellent precision. I'd say he's maybe Doma level. The reason I say maybe is if you think Doma is close to Akaza or Kokushibo. If he's close to Kokushibo, then it's hypothetical, healthy 13th from Tanjiro wouldn't be Doma level. If you think Doma is closer to Akaza, then he's Doma level. It could likely beat him. And the unhealthy one being the same spot, just a little weaker, and with that stamina. Scale Gyomei, or scale base Gyomei first. A base Gyomei comes in the safe Tsunami and is called stronger than base Tsunami, and it's pretty much glazed. So this immediately makes base Gyomei above anyone who you think base Tsunami is losing to. I'm going in depth about base Tsunami scaling. There's a bunch of videos on that, and it's not what this video is about, and I did my video on it with Giyu vs Tsunami. Base Giyu can overwhelm and holding back Kokushibo to the point where it can't even get breathing forms off. They then clash and Gyomei gets cut once. It is however implied that Gyomei equally clashed with Koko and damaged the back. The reason for this is because Kokushibo says that all attacks Gyomei will land will heal instantly, implying that he was also hit by an attack and Gyomei couldn't rejoin that because he was human, but Kokushibo instantly regenerated it. This holding back Kokushibo based Gyomei's pressing can be scaled in many places. I'll scale where I think he is. A Kokushibo who's holding back even more than the example we just brought up can blitz Marked Muichiro. To scale Marked Muichiro quickly, he should be above Infinity Arc Castle Tanjiro, as if above him in the arc before. Then they both do Hashira training, so Marked Muri should be stronger than IC Tanjiro. So Marked Muichiro should be above Akaza in speed, so a pretty big margin like 13th form Tanjiro. Not saying Marked Muichiro beats 13th form Tanjiro, but they're relative. Kokushibo is able to blitz Akaza. Whether or not you want to use this feat is fine, it doesn't change anything. This is supported by the fact that Muri is faster than Akaza and Kokushibo still blitzed him. When Kokushibo activates his mark, Kokushibo goes full power. The reason Kokushibo goes all out is because they have a conversation about the Demon Slayer mark. Gyomei says there must have been one person to live for the Demon Slayer mark past 24, that being Yurichi. This disturbed Kokushibo and made him mad, which fit his character completely. We then see him trying to blitz Gyomei in the middle of their conversation, and Gyomei is in the middle of talking. He's also drawn with no mouth here, which implies he's not holding back. This is consistent with Akaza going all out when he's drawn with no mouth. Gyomei reacts to this blitz, blocking it. They then even clash for a short bit before Tsunemi comes in. They start to pressure Kokushibo, even cutting his ear. I will say that Gyomei isn't carrying Tsunemi in this encounter. Gyomei and Kokushibo were fighting evenly, then Tsunemi came in, and they were pressuring him to the point where he had tore his shirt off and cut his ear. So it should be obvious that Tsunemi is giving me enough help to pressure Kokushibo. To make it more obvious about what I'm saying, I'll give a percentage. Gyomei and Kokushibo were 50-50, fighting evenly. Then Tsunemi came in, and added another 50% to Gyomei's side. So now, it's 100-0, with Kokushibo being heavily pressured. When Kokushibo uses his longsword, Gyomei does not get blitzed. We legit see him in the next chapter, that Gyomei was able to react to the attack fast enough to protect Tsunemi from the attack. I won't be mentioning his longsword Kokushibo feats, because those are all travel speed. The reason it's travel speed is because the second we see Gyomei try to use a breathing form of Kokushibo, his attack came out first, and Gyomei started running again. When he gets C3 he'll obviously get a massive reaction time boost, but we don't know to the extent because he had no feats in it, and he's still dodging longsword Kokushibo at the same rate. The only difference is that he now knows how to counter C3 World. As we see, he was able to change his blood flow to disturb longsword Kokushibo's attacks. To cover his Muzan feats, he was never hit by a first strike Muzan. He only says he was being pushed back, which is likely because of Muzan's poison, making him weaker. But even so, Gyomei after he assesses still doesn't get hit. Muzan, as I said earlier, doesn't blitz any of the Hashira. He uses a technique. It's heavily implied by the loud noise, ground shaking, and the Hashira getting blasted away. We literally don't see what happens, and for all we know, Goku came in and blasted everyone away. To cover how the fight would go, it should be obvious that Gyomei's scaling is way above Tanjiro's. Even a healthy 13th from Tanjiro, both C3 and Red Blade, who scales above Akaza, and close to Doma, and the pressure of 13th from position, and the precision, I couldn't see him damaging Gyomei. Gyomei could counter Tanjiro's C3 Road the same way he did Kokushibo's and catch him off guard. Gyomei, in all honesty, might be blitzing Tanjiro. The only way I wouldn't see him doing that is if you think Tanjiro's C3 reaction time is good enough for him to react, but I don't for a couple of reasons. C3 Tanjiro was damaged by Akaza's final form, even when he had no fighting spirit, meaning Tanjiro's reaction time is still Akaza level. So unless you think Akaza's final form with no compass is as fast as Kokushibo's attacks, then Tanjiro is getting blitzed. But for the fun of it, let's say Tanjiro is getting blitzed. Gyomei will still be faster, having better speed feats, as I said, he would counter C3 Worlds. I could see his sun breathing hacks coming into play, confusing Gyomei. After the first loop of sun breathing, I see Gyomei being smart enough to avoid all the attacks. We'll see 13th from Tanjiro is getting blitzed, and in all honesty, and Gyomei is winning low diff. So hopefully this video helped show why 13th from Tanjiro versus Gyomei still isn't close. He was never close, so please stop glazing him. Like, sub, peace.